the strategy helps people make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's, for me, that's when it starts to become part of a culture.
Yep.
When people are, every single decision they make is referred back to the strategy, whatever that could be. Can you unpack that a little bit more for me?
Yeah, sure. So it's so twofold. One, as an intro to that unpacking, one of the things that I think makes CX so powerful and thus informs the strategy touches on something that you just said, like above the water, the duck gets a bow, below the water, maybe it gets, fins or motors or something. One of the things of the many things that I really, really dig about ADP is on the surface, living here in the Valley, and I've worked at those startups where what makes a company cool and relevant tends to be, like you say, a lot of them are vanity metrics. It's I can measure, and I know we'll get into NPS, but like, I can measure my NPS because it's an 80, not distinguishing. There's a very big difference between a relationship and a transaction, right? What I really dig about ADP structure is that customer experience, our group, while we have many, many business units within ADP, as you can imagine, with 56,000 employees, our particular group, while we're all called customer experience, and I am our strategy specialist, you've got BPI people in there, business process improvement, who are Lean Six Sigma, black belt, essentially. If my role is, hey, okay, where are we? We're in a lake. There are this many ducks. Here are the experience, the kind of the architecture of it. Once I get to those duck legs, if you will, and I know through customer feedback, we all know in our group that there's a friction point with ABC, you're right. What am I going to do? Throw it over the fence? So having business process improvement folks on our team, having data analytics folks that can say, I think this is true, but no one cares what you think, right? What does the data say? Having all of that in the actual ecosystem of CX makes the soft and fluffy perceptions that tend to happen of, like, to your point, let's put lipstick on the duck, which I'm imagining the logistics of that, and it's confusing to me. But
it's not a great analogy.
but like I so value that, and while I've seen nuances of that in other organizations I've worked in, I've never seen an organization so completely committed to fixing shit the right way, instead of, we're going to understand it, we're going to hold up a mirror, and then, hey, let's go do it let's go give it to the folks who can really do the work. The fact that we are able in a full life cycle to understand what the experience is and then make actual strategic recommendations of how to fix it, I just think it is brilliant. And so then that gets to that's the same as, or kind of a complement to, what does it mean to make decisions? Well, if in the CX world, we know that ultimately there is a maturity curve. Some companies are super, super immature, and their goal, their strategy, how they make decisions is on a scale of make it suck less. Like, it's true. Like, we talk about, let's all be like Amazon and Bezos, or let's be like, AARP and all these folks that have ridiculously high NPS scores. I'm calling bullshit and saying the way that you make decisions starts with a very honest evaluation of the maturity of your company. So if you know that the product or service that you offer sucks, and it just does, and people tell you all the time it sucks, then rather than desperately putting resources, your CapEx, your OpEx, to just brushing this, back to the duck, to tuning up the duck, how about zoom way out and say, okay, well, why does it suck? How do we make decisions? One of the ways universally that I've made, and our groups have made decisions over the years, whether you are at we want to suck less or we want to delight, somewhere on that scale, it's a very basic process called the 5 whys. And we, at a number of companies, have used this, again, whether you're in marketing, IT, whatever. Part of the decision making is, here's a thing that we want to do. This is the new marketing campaign. This is the new, product feature. Product is a great example. Why do, someone just says, we need to have this new feature because our competitor does. Okay, cool. The end. But the CX strategy would say, let's stop. Let's make some decisions according to the 5 whys. And does this actually impact the experience that the customer is going to have in a positive way? Because that will result in us either gaining new customers or retaining existing customers. And that 5 whys is as obvious as it sounds. We're product, we want to have this new feature. Why? Because of our, whatever, our competitor does the thing. Okay, well, why are we copying our competitor? That's your second why. Well, because they have market share and we don't, and we want to get that. Okay, well, why don't we have the same market share? Well, because, and you can see this getting unpacked. Well, why? Well, why? And oftentimes, by the time you get to the 5th why, it's, oh, our market share issue is because we still have Rev 3.2 out in the market, which is only compatible on, IE2 or something ridiculous, and everyone uses Chrome. So that's why we need to invest in this different thing instead of just add the feature. And I'll give, that's a broad example. I'll give a very specific example of a company here in Silicon Valley. They wanted to take their basic platform that people pay lots of money for, and they wanted to make it new and sexy. And the inside out view was, here's the strategy. We need to upgrade this thing. We need to add these features, and that's what we're going to do. And it was rational. And the echo chamber, that is an inside company out to the customer view, all agreed that it was the right thing. That company went out to the market and had a very, very slow adoption, like in the low 10% adoption rate, whereas their previous version was in the 80s. And you start to get into the whys, and the first why was everything you can imagine. It was the competitive landscape. It was, well, but when they got through the 5 whys, the real reason was because the inside out view that company had was, let's develop the product on Macs because that's what everyone here uses. Not even deciding to ask, what is the common mechanism that their users use? Well, 90% of their users are large organizations, enterprise companies, much like an ADP, who typically have your HPs, your Dells, your ThinkPads. And so had the decision making been, let's ask the 5 whys, let's keep the customer centricity, it would have been like, well, shit, wait, we're about to invest millions of dollars into something that makes sense to us because we live here in Techlandia, but is not adoptable to 90% of our customers. So now stop what you're doing and make it work for a damn PC. That sort of thinking, they lost millions of dollars, lost competitive market share because they were busy thinking about the strategy of themselves rather than what would be the actual experience that we want customers to have. And if they had thought about that, they probably would have not only been gaining new customers, but also retaining. And instead, it was just this fucking PR nightmare of trying to figure out, now they have OpEx and CapEx supporting 2 versions because no one can use the damn second version, except those who had Mac loved it. You can see how the decision-making of what experience we want the customers to have would have had that company thinking about the customers who can't use Macs. And so that's just one example of why this stuff works at the IT level. Had they been in the room making those decisions, they would have been like, wait, we don't even support that. What? That would have been at the product level. Marketing wouldn't have started a massive campaign wasting millions and tens of millions of dollars on something that, well, it's cool if your customers can't adopt it or buy it, and that's your target market, that's your segmentation that you're driving to. What's the point? There is no point.
Well, definitely, it's kind of like, it's, if you look back to the late great Steve Jobs, it comes down to directly what he said. It's not about figuring out what cool stuff you can make internally, then seeing how you can cram it into people's lives. It's about going out into the customers' lives, understanding their real needs and their successful outcomes, and then working backwards into your organization to provide those things